All right, so I'd like to demonstrate using Git Fetch, and in order to do that, I need to have some changes on a GitHub repo that I don't have locally. Normally, this would come from collaborators, right, from other people I'm working with who are pushing their own changes up. But right now, if it's just me, I kind of need to fake that, or at least change the GitHub repo in another way. And I can do that. You can make any GitHub repo and manually add files and edit files. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go on GitHub. So first of all, I'm working on this remote branches demo where I've got the ASCII art. So I've got the fantasy branch. We added that Phoenix into, and then I've got three other branches. Let's go to the food branch, and I'm going to create a new file on GitHub. I won't have this on my machine, so I can create new file. And then I'm using this ASCII art website. I'm just going to take this apple and paste it in here. So if you're following along or doing something similar, you can edit any file on GitHub, assuming it's in a repo you own. And when you do that, as you can see here, it's going to generate a commit. And I also need to come up with a name for the file. So I'll do apple.txt, and then I'll create it on the food branch. I could create a new branch. I'm not going to do that. I'm adding this to the food branch. Okay, so now it shows just like any other commit. I have a new file, create apple.txt. It's showing up right here. I'm going to switch now to a different branch. How about to the movies branch? And I'll copy this Tinkerbell ASCII art and put that in a file on the movies branch called Tinkerbell. Tinkerbell.txt, and I'll paste that in. And I'll commit again to make a new file on the movies branch. So all of this that I've done so far, it has nothing to do with fetching. We're just updating the repo so that now we have stuff on GitHub that I don't have present on my local machine. And again, normally the way this would happen is that somebody pushes up changes from their own local repo, if I had collaborators. All right, so now we have 3 files on movies, and we have 3 files in food. Locally, let's start with the movies branch. If I go to the movies branch here, so just make sure I don't have any changes here, git switch to movies. All right, I just have 2 files, right? If I type git status, it says I'm up to date with origin/movies, but that just means I'm up to date with what my local repo knows origin/movies was, not what it exactly is at this one moment in time, because it can change. My repo is not constantly asking, hey, is there new stuff? Is there new stuff from GitHub? I have to do that. I have to tell it, go fetch changes. Go fetch the latest. So that's what I want to do right now. I want to get the changes. Let's say my friend told me, what did I say his name was? Bob Head? Yeah, Bob Head told me, Colt, I just added to the movies branch. Go fetch the changes. You need them. So git fetch, and then I can specify origin to get all changes, or I can specify one branch, like movies. Normally, I just do git fetch origin, or just even git fetch, because it will default to origin. But if you only want to fetch one branch, then you can specify. So I'm going to do a git fetch, and I'll do origin just to be clearer. We only have one remote, but here we go. Git fetch origin. Okay, doesn't seem like a whole lot happened, right? Well, let's type git status now. Now I see a completely different message. It says your branch is behind origin/movies by 1 commit. So we can tell origin/movies, that remote branch reference has been updated. It's the equivalent with different branch names of what we saw here, where we had master, origin/master was updated when we fetched to point to something new, but my branch itself is unchanged. So the same idea, but swap in movies. My movies branch is here, and origin/movies is pointing at a new commit. So if I go back, let's take a look at our files. Just 2 files in my working directory. I don't have that new work. If I type git log, not fur, git log, I don't see that new commit either. Nothing has changed in my working directory. However, origin/movies is now pointing to something new. It's pointing to a new commit, and I can take a look at that. I can do git checkout origin/movies, I just want to take a peek. What is the work that Bobhead did? And now I enter detached head. And now I see, oh, yeah, Tinkerbell is here, right? Ghostbusters is here, Bambi, but this is the new work. Okay, and if I type git log here, we see create Tinkerbell. That was the most recent commit because we are looking at origin/movies. So I could make a new branch from here if I wanted to, but what I'm actually going to show you next is how we can use the pull command to help us out if we actually want to integrate these changes into our working directory. But for now, Fetch is just getting those changes from GitHub or any other remote repo, and it brings them down to my machine. It just doesn't integrate them. So I can switch branches too. Let's make sure I get back out of detached head. So let's switch back to movies. Okay, so I'm still behind origin movies by 1. Now let's switch to, what was it, foods? No, food. All right. And, oh, we didn't even have food on my machine at this point. I hadn't actually worked on it. So I just saw a message. I cleared it, unfortunately, but it said it set up the branch for me. And if I take a look at what we have, it's already up to date. It has that Apple file. So that's kind of a unique case because I hadn't even bothered looking at this branch yet. But because I switched to it for the very first time and I had just fetched, it used the most recent information that it fetched. From, remember, we have these remote tracking branches. Remember, git branch -r, it used origin/food. So I'm going to make one more change. Let's do another food. So we'll go back to food here, and I'll add a new file. And I guess I'll take this, is it tea, coffee, whatever this is. We'll put that, we'll call this, coffee.txt. So I'm making a new file on the food branch. I'll commit. Okay, and now I'm going to go back here, and if I type git status on the food branch, it thinks it's up to date. It is up to date with what we have, origin/food, but I can get more recent information, more up-to-date information. This time I'll just show fetching a particular branch. It will work exactly the same way, git fetch origin food. And what we see now is a decent chunk of output, and if I type git status, it tells me, hey, you're on this branch called food, and it's behind origin/food by 1 commit. Just a moment ago before I fetched, it was up to date. Now it says you're behind by 1. So it tells me use git pull to update your branch. That's a sneak peek at what we're going to cover next. But as you just saw, git fetch got me the latest information from that food branch, and now we can take a look at it. So if I inspect, right, we're not looking at the latest version. We're not looking at what we just fetched. This is my working directory. But now, if I check it out, origin/food, detached head, and we see coffee is here. All right, so that's the basic idea of fetching. There are other things, that you would use fetch for. It's not just about updating the particular branch that you're on and getting the latest. Also, it might be that a new branch was created. That's really common. I can make a new branch here just as a demonstration. I'll delete it, but I can make one called, how about more food? Okay, create that branch. I'm doing it on GitHub. So I just made this branch. It's only on GitHub. I don't know about it here. If I do git branch -r, I don't see more food. But as soon as I fetch, git fetch, now it says, oh, there's this thing, origin more food. We know about it now. So if I do git branch -r again, now I have more food. It's exactly the same as my food branch. I didn't change it in any way, so we wouldn't see a difference. But now my computer, my local repo, knows about it. A moment ago, it didn't know about it until I fetched. So using fetch gets you the latest information about some remote repository. It just doesn't automatically integrate those changes into whatever you're working on.